Hey there, good morning. Welcome into Unpaid Interns. It is a snowy Wednesday morning in the middle of December, and finals week rolls on here at Indiana University in Bloomington. I'm Griffin Epstein here on this episode of Unpaid Interns, and we continue our senior spotlight series this week. We have another graduating senior on. Haley Jordan joins us today. She has done a whole lot over the last 4 years with IU Sports Media. She's currently the IUSTV Football beat reporter. She's been an intern at Wish TV in Indianapolis, and she's also a broadcaster for BTNSU. Haley, I know you're about to graduate in a couple of days. You're just telling me you're about ready to get out of here, but we appreciate you taking some time and coming on today.
Oh, thank you for having me. This will be my last official student-run broadcast, so this is kind of emotional and sad, but I'm happy to be here.
We'll try to avoid any tears then. Make you sad, but I do want to start out by just asking you how you feel about graduating in your experiences over the last 4 years in Bloomington.
Oh, I love Bloomington, but I was ready to graduate like 2 years ago. I've always been the type of student that, while I love learning and I love participating in all the student-run organizations, I have always wanted to work. I've always wanted to be at that station and starting to create work from the bottom up just myself. And so although I am going to miss Bloomington, everything about it, all the amazing people I've met, all of the sports media professors, I am so ready to take this next step. And I'm going to start job hunting when January hits.
Well, I want a little reflection. What is one of your proudest accomplishments over what you've done at IU in sports media specifically?
Oh, wow. Making my first package, even though nobody really knew what was happening, because I was definitely not sharing that package on social media. It was terrible. But finally figuring out how to construct something from start to finish, even though it was terrible, that was my proudest moment, because I knew I'm going to be making a ton of those for the rest of my life. As far as something that I can put on paper, that's maybe a little more slightly impressive, I actually won a national sports reporting scholarships for RTDNA. So that was very exciting for me, and it just kind of gave me the confidence I needed moving on into this next step of life. And the person who granted me that wonderful scholarship, we've been keeping in touch, and I'm super grateful for it. So it kind of just solidified that, okay, I am in the right profession.
That's an awesome accomplishment for sure. How about a memory or maybe one of your favorite stories, whether you're at a game covering or just working in sports media with friends and correspondence?
Oh gosh. Okay, so this one's kind of funny, but I covered field hockey last year for Big Ten Network, and for some reason, I don't know what was wrong with the camera or production, but we always had issues. I think just because field hockey is so spread out, right? There's just a ton of room out there. But I couldn't get my IFB to work. I couldn't hear what Sam was saying up in play-by-play booth, and well, I was downstairs practicing, or down on the field practicing my hit, and we were about to go live, and the camera guy was like, "Yeah, we're not going live because they can't hear you." And I can hear Sam in my ear, and he's like, "And here's Haley Jordan," and I'm like, I can't say anything. So they just ended up, it was just dead air, complete dead air. And I'm just sitting there like, oh man, I had stuff to say. Like, I watched this game, I was ready. That was fun because, sometimes that happens. Like, there's not going to be a smooth broadcast every single time. Another one was with Sam as well. It was the last game I ever covered for Big Ten Student U. It was a softball game, and I was sitting in the booth with Sam Niederman, and he said, "Oh my gosh, our spring break was just extended." And that was the beginning of COVID. So I couldn't believe that was the last one I ever broadcast. None of us knew it. So that was an extra special game as well, just to be able to be at the field one last time.
Yeah, I can remember that day, and I think that was the penultimate BTNSU broadcast that we did at IU last year. That was kind of the start of the end that day.
Beginning of the end, absolutely.
Well, I mentioned at the top of the show, you're the current IUSTV beat reporter for football, so we got to ask you about IU football. It's been the talk of the town, the talk of the country. There's been a little bit of controversy, obviously, with the college football playoff ranking the last couple of days as well. What's your overall thoughts on the season, especially as we're nearing a bowl game announcement for where IU is going to play?
Oh my goodness, I'm pleasantly surprised. And I remember sitting on Drew Fry's show, The Toss Up, and just, predicting a 4-4 record. And I'm really kicking myself for that because I knew they could do better than that, and they did. And it was such an opportunity to be able to go to a couple of those games in person. I was there at Penn State, Michael Penix barely making contact with the pylon. Like, I was there, I had a front row seat, I saw it all. So it was really a treat to be there. As far as the team goes as a whole, it was I don't know, it was almost like the whole team just finally came together. Like, we've seen Watt Fillier before, we've seen Ty Freifeld before. And I know we have a lot of new players like Michael Penix, until he was injured. He was kind of a new guy because we had Ramsey last year. But all of these older players and all of these new transfers coming together, it made for the perfect mix of a team. And that's really what Indiana needed, because we haven't seen this in so long. I just hate that all the Indiana fans had to watch from home or had to watch from, a Reddit stream or something because of COVID. And that was really devastating. But as far as covering this team this year, it has just been my utmost privilege. It's the last beat I'll ever have for IU Student TV. And I'm just very thankful that I got to work alongside Jevin and Drew Fry and Jackson Kinney, and they were able to grant me that opportunity. It was awesome. Like, being there in person, I just couldn't have asked for anything better my last semester.
I just wanted to ask you a little bit more about that Penn State game. You were actually in Memorial Stadium. I mean, what was that whole experience like, being there, leaving the stadium, having Bloomington exploding? Just take us through that day.
Oh gosh, well, I was already raving about going, and I hate to admit this, I thought they were going to lose. I did not think it was going to be a close game.
Most people did.
Yeah, so I show up and I have my camera and I'm like, oh, it's a nice day out. Like, if anything, I'll enjoy some good old football, So I'm sitting there setting up my camera, and as the game's progressing, I'm thinking, oh boy, like this is actually a close game. And then there were a couple moments when I thought it was over. And so I put my camera away. I was just sitting there and live tweeting the game. I put my camera away. And then, those 2-point conversions come out. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I grab my camera and I'm trying to catch all of this. So that was my mistake, giving up a little too early. But sitting there and watching just the empty seats explode, like with their family members, it was insane. Like, it was nowhere even close to full capacity, nowhere even close. It looked so empty, but it was so loud, just booming across the stadium. And even at the end, family members did rush the field. A ton of people, they could not be stopped. They were running towards the front, and it was just a beautiful scene of, craziness to just sit back and watch. I was really proud of that team, and was really proud I got to be there in that moment and help give some good coverage to that team, because they deserve it.
Absolutely. That was a day anyone involved with IU football or in Bloomington will certainly never forget. Now, you're a senior, you're graduating, you have a lot of experience. People watching want some wise words, some wisdom. What advice specifically, I guess, would you give maybe to younger broadcasters and journalists at the IU Media School for reaching the level of success that you've had?
Get involved in everything you can think of, even if you don't think you're going to like it. Do it. And also, I would say, I don't know if people hear this too often, but I would say expand your studies a little bit more as well. So I'll brush on that first. I am a journalism major with a focus in broadcast and a specialization in sports. So that's quite the mouthful. But I'm also a double major in Spanish as well. And I just think that's going to make me stand out even more on resumes. I know some media school students have paired a Spanish minor, and I think that's one of the smartest things that you can do, because when you are applying for jobs in those stations or those teams see that you're bilingual, they're going to be like, yes, I'm taking this candidate over this candidate. So that's one thing, just to kind of expand your study horizons, find other things that you like. And another thing is get involved in everything. I made the mistake of starting the game late. I did not do anything media related until my junior year. And that is horrible. I didn't even make a package until I was 21 years old, and I'm 22 now. So that was my mistake. And my excuse for that was I just really didn't know what all was out there. When I was a freshman, my advisor wasn't in the media school. It was with my scholarship program that I have. So he wasn't really sure where I needed to start with media. So I spent my first 2 years taking all gen ed classes, and I had no idea that IUSTV or Big Ten Student U even existed. I had not a clue. So when I jumped into this, my junior year, I started small, writing, some small sports articles for IDS. And then I started meeting people. I started networking, started talking to people a little more. I met Dr. Galen Clavio, who really was influential in my path at IU. I met Trisha Whitaker. I met Ann Ryder. All these people that were key components into the success that I've had while at IU. But I would just say to everybody else, don't make the same mistake I did. Do not start media when you're 21. Start as soon as you get to IU. And a lot of times, yeah, you're going to have to give up your college experience. You know, your weekends are going to be you in the studio, or your nights are going to be spent studying or creating a package. But I promise you, it is going to be worth it. Like the job that you're going to have someday, whether that's at ESPN, Fox Sports, a local station, it is going to be so much more fun than any of those nights, like those crazy nights you could have had in college. So I would say throw those behind and really work towards your future as well, because it's going to be worth it.
Definitely great advice. One of the other cool things I also mentioned you're able to do is you had an internship this past semester with Wish TV, a local station in Indianapolis, as a sports intern. How do you come about? How valuable are internships like that? And what was that experience like over the last couple of months when most people, you know, often don't have jobs or are struggling to produce content right now just due to the situation with the pandemic?
Oh, yeah, I love talking about Wish. This is my favorite topic. Okay, so actually, a crazy story about the Wish sports internship is I actually didn't get it. I originally did not get it. I applied for it, I want to say like a year and a half ago for the summer of 2019, and I didn't get it. I had an interview, but I didn't get it. And they said, you know, you should come back next year. Well, the next summer I tried again, and they're like, actually, you're too late. We've already signed all of our interns. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like I just keep missing this internship. So instead, I did the Wish TV News internship last summer or a couple summers ago, where I learned all the basics. So that's where I learned how to make packages. That's how I learned how to network, and I got all my foundational skills. So that was wonderful, and the news team there is phenomenal. But this past semester, I was like, I'm going to try sports one more time. And by this time, everyone in the sports department knew my name because I sent them so many emails over the course of the past 2 years. And I said, hi, I'm back. I know that you do semester interns. I'm very interested in fall. Could I have an interview? And they said, you know what? You can just have the internship at this point. So they literally I sent them my reel and they gave me the internship on the spot. And I am so glad that I didn't have this internship 2 years ago, because I knew nothing 2 years ago. This time around, I knew how to make packages. I knew how to cut highlights. I knew how to script write. So that way I can kind of impress my boss a little bit more because I had those foundational skills. And since I had those foundational skills, I could really focus on perfecting those skills. So sometimes we would write Pacers highlights, or we would do Colts highlights, and I would write them. I had a good foundation, but then one of the reporters like Charlie Clifford or Olivia Ray, they would come in, they would edit what I had, and they'd be like, okay, you need to change this, this, and this, or this is perfect. Like, let's roll with it. Let's send it to TV. And so that was really a great opportunity because I got to see my work actually on TV. And even though they didn't put me on TV as much as I would have liked them to, they didn't put me on TV, but they put my work on TV. And that was crazy just to see something that I was working on behind the scenes and having our sports director, AC, read it aloud for everyone in Indiana. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in the right place at the right time. Like God's timing is so amazing because I didn't get this 2 years ago. They would have never put my stuff on the air 2 years ago. Heck no, it was terrible. But now that I've had the experience paired with the news internship at Wish and then also a couple more college years under my belt, I really was where I needed to be at the right time.
So I guess some of the lesson in that is, don't take no for an answer, keep on bothering people. And, sometimes eventually you might get your way.
Be a little aggressive, not like crazy aggressive, but like just enough to where you check in every once in a while so they know their name, so they know your name, and they're like, okay, yeah, she really wants it. And it wasn't like I was just some rando who didn't have anything to back it up, because I would send in my reel and my resume as well, just so I wasn't like, hi, I go to IU, please hire me. But I did have some things to back it up. But that has been something that I've lived by. That it's just, yeah, don't take no for an answer, take maybe as an answer, and roll with that.
It's not bad advice. You mentioned earlier, you're ready to start applying for jobs. We won't pressure you into too much of where you're looking or where you might go, but wanted to ask a hypothetical question. If you could have any job in sports media, what would be your dream job?
Oh boy, yeah, I get asked this all the time, and I have goosebumps. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. But my goal has always been to make it to Fox Sports or ESPN. And I think if you ask anybody that, they're going to tell you the exact same thing. Like, there is nothing like seeing somebody holding the microphone with that giant red E on it. It's kind of like, the top of the pyramid for all sports. But I do understand that I'm only 22, and it's going to take some time to work up to that. I can't just start off being a sideline reporter. I will have to work up to that. So in the immediate future, I'm going to start applying to local stations where there's a sports department. I might even go as far to apply to some teams and try to get some, minor sideline positions with them. I'm going to apply to everywhere. And I know there's this rule that's like, you have to start in some really, terrible market and able to get the experience and make all your mistakes there. And while I do value that advice and I do agree with part of that, I'm like, at the same time, hey, shoot for the stars. Like, I'm going to apply to Nashville, even though that's a top 25 or top 30 station in the US. I'm going to. Like, nobody can stop me. I'm going to apply anywhere that I feel like would be a good fit for me, even though it might seem like a long shot. I'm still going to try because you just never know. And whichever market that I end up in, I'm eager to learn. I'm eager to learn from their reporters, from their sports director, and hopefully that can lead me to a wonderful, valued position someday, whether that's ESPN and I'm working alongside Erin Andrews or Maria Taylor, Christina Pink, all those wonderful women that I've watched for years. I will be so, so happy. And I don't care about the paycheck. I don't really care about the city. As long as I'm doing what I love and I get up every day and I'm going to work going, yes, this doesn't feel like work, then I've won.
That's a very moving thought, I think, about sports media, but they say you can't be in it for the money. So certainly wise words. One other question for you, and I bet a lot of people are getting this question now, is just during the pandemic, sports media is a lot more challenging, especially with video. You can't, always be there. You can't always get that interview in person. What kind of challenges have you found with that? And maybe how have you tried to be more creative and work your way around some of the barriers that COVID-19 has presented in the last 6 or so months?
Yeah, that it just stinks because you can't go and film your own B-roll. You can't go to a game and get a pass. Like, had it been normal, everyone would have filled the stands at Memorial Stadium. But I think the biggest challenge for me so far was just a lack of creativity. A lot of my packages, it's the Zoom screen, and that's not always the most fun angle for people to look at or viewers to watch. But I have to keep in mind that this is happening everywhere. This is not just Haley Jordan's reel. Like, this is happening to everybody, whether it's ESPN or local news. This is what's happening. And something that I've tried to do to spice it up is just to look for the best B-roll that I can possibly find. So, for example, I did a feature story on an IndyCar driver, Connor Daly, and I was lucky enough to interview him in person. So that was fantastic. But I obviously couldn't go to the track and film my own B-roll. I couldn't do that. That wasn't allowed because of COVID. So what I did was I just looked at YouTube videos of him, old footage, stuff that was really colorful, eye-catching, and of course, with his permission, downloaded all that and used that for B-roll. So it's kind of like a treasure hunt to put your packages together this day and age, because if the person doesn't send you enough B-roll, you have to get creative and you have to go find it. And that's why packages take so long nowadays, because, I'm not at the sporting event shooting B-roll or shooting the quarterback who had a wonderful game. I'm having to get creative and hunt for that. And I've run into that with IU football as well. Like, I did a little feature on, Justin Fields as well. And I'm like, well, I couldn't go to the Ohio State game. Not many people could. So I had to be creative and hunt him down on YouTube, and hunt him down I did. So I ended up finding some good footage. But I think people would be surprised with how much they can find and how much more information they can find by just, using the Google search bar, type in their name, see what else comes up. And although it's not ideal, it's a way more fun to go and interview somebody in person. It is, it's temporary. It's working for everybody right now.
All right. Well, we're going to move into our last segment of today. We're going to do a little rapid fire. I'm going to ask you some questions about IU and try to keep them a little bit shorter, but I'll try not to cut you off. But if you go crazy long, I might have to. So we'll see.
Okay, deal.
All right. First question for you. Your favorite player that you've covered at IU?
Michael Penix Jr. No question. No question. Love that guy. I've interacted with him a couple of times on Twitter. He's fantastic. Michael Penix Jr. Oh, and Kari, volleyball player. Kari Zubak. She's fantastic as well. So Kari from volleyball, Michael Penix Jr. from football.
You've talked a lot about packages. Obviously, you've made a lot of video packages. What's the most favorite video package that you've made over the last couple of years?
I covered a 5-year-old hockey prodigy in Indianapolis named Desmond. He is a fantastic. That was with Wish TV. So he was fantastic, and he kept saying he wanted to be better than Wayne Gretzky someday. So that's going to make for a fantastic package. So thankful I was able to create that. That's on my reel. Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a fun package. I asked this question to Drew on Monday and got a really fun answer. There's so many interesting classes at IU. What's your favorite non-sports media class, or really non-media class, that you've taken at IU?
Oh gosh. So unfortunately I've never got to take any fun classes because I'm a double major, so it's either Spanish or media. I will tell you my least favorite. So the one that I'm in right now, it's a class about chimpanzees. I kid you not, Griffin. It's about chimpanzees, and it's the hardest class that I've ever taken. I'm going to get a B in it. It's my second B of college, and it's a class about chimpanzees. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. But yeah, I've never taken a fun class. Isn't that sad? It's always been Spanish and media, or like psychology gen eds. Yeah.
Chimpanzees sound fun, but maybe it's a little bit, it's only on chimpanzees. That sounds like it's very highly specific.
It's very highly specific, and it's stuff that, you don't really think about too often in your everyday life. So, shout out to that professor. She really did challenge me. She really did.
All right, next question for you. What is and obviously a little different now, but in a normal year, what is your go-to dining hall on campus for a quick meal?
Ooh, I always loved Forest. I lived in Reed my freshman year of college, and we had our little cafe downstairs, but Forest was the place to go. They had that little frozen yogurt place. I forget what it was called, but we went there all the time. Bloomingberry. Yes, I got my strawberry banana smoothie there. It was fantastic. Haven't been to that place in, probably 2 years because I just wasn't on campus that often. But for all incoming freshmen, Forest is the place to go if you want kind of a hot home-cooked meal type.
I definitely agree with that as a Forest resident alum. Next question for you. What is your favorite spot in Bloomington? Can be on campus or off campus.
I love Lake Griffey. I've been a nature girl. I grew up in the country. You can't see, my property right now, but I'm looking at it. There's snow everywhere, woods, trees. And so, Lake Griffey just feels like a taste of home. And I would go there often with friends to hike. A couple other places that I really like to, Runcible Spoon. My favorite restaurant. I bet I went to Runcible Spoon in my college career probably over 30 times. I ordered the chocolate chip pancake every single time with a side of whipped cream, and I was never disappointed each time that I went.
I walked by it last weekend. I've never been there, so I gotta make my way inside at some point. All right, last big question for you here on our rapid fire. You're a couple of days away from not being a college student. What are you most excited to do now that you will no longer be a college student?
I guess have a little bit more freedom. Homework always constrained my evenings, and sometimes I just wanted to go out and film some additional stories just on my own time, but I couldn't because I had that statistics homework or I had Spanish homework or something. So going into the real world and not having homework, I cannot even imagine. IU still has me for a couple more days, but once I'm done, I can literally start any project that I want, any independent project that I want. And that's what I'm the most excited for. And also I'm excited for when I finally get a job and get into the working world, I can come home after my job and just chill. Like I don't have to do homework or turn anything in on Canvas by midnight. It's going to be fantastic. And maybe I'll be a little bored, but that's okay. I'd rather be a little bit bored than have, mountains of homework to do.
I can't imagine not having Canvas in my life. That seems shocking.
GroupMe, like I'm never going to be in another GroupMe, and that just seems crazy to me. But I'm willing to part with it.
It's going to be something, and congratulations on graduating in a couple of days. And we, everyone at the media school appreciates your contributions and everything you've done with IU Sports Media over the last couple of years. So appreciate you coming on today, providing some wisdom and some fun stories.
Thank you, Griffin. Thank you so much. And I mean, it seems like you're in good hands with the media school. I know you are because I've went through it. So you're going to be in my shoes here soon. So good luck to you too.
That's the goal. I appreciate that. That will do it for today's episode of Unpaid Interns. We will have one more senior spotlight on Friday at, trying to read my calendar, and I didn't put it on my calendar. Sometime on Friday, I think early afternoon. Check out our IU Sports Media YouTube page or the IU Sports Media Twitter page. You'll see it on there. And as always, if you want to listen to our podcast, you can check out any IU Sports Media show, including Unpaid Interns, on Sprecher or wherever you get your podcasts. That's going to do it for Unpaid Interns today. For Haley Jordan, I'm Griffin Epstein. We'll talk to you again real soon.